What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we build them together. Now today is, of course, build day, and we are working with a very interesting subclass, and that is the Wild Magic Barbarian. So if you're ready to add some magic onto your anger, go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, the vast majority of people who watch this channel are actually not subscribed. So please, don't be one of those people. Help me out. Go ahead and subscribe. It really, really helps. We're hoping to eventually get monetized here, and that would be absolutely fantastic. And of course, click the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. We are very close to reaching Bard territory here in a couple of weeks, and so I know a lot of you will be excited about that. And then share with your friends. Word of mouth works so much better than most people think it does. It works super well, and so please, it really helps us out when you share with your friends, share with your mom, share with your dad, share with that cousin that you hardly ever talk to, anybody, just some random guy on the street. Show him the channel. It'll be a good time. So this build today is going to be several firsts. We have not multi-classed Barbarian into this class yet. And this is also going to be a race that I have not used on the channel before either. So a lot of really cool first time things are happening today in today's build. And so I really hope that you guys are looking forward to it. So let's jump into it. So the whole concept for this build was, you know, we have a magic barbarian with some magic already flowing from within. And yes, that lends itself to being a sorcerer, but we're not gonna do that because one, there's already a wild magic sorcerer, and I think that it's a bit redundant to do wild magic barbarian and wild magic sorcerer. Also, sorcerer makes us much less bulky, which, I mean, technically any other class we take is gonna make us less bulky. But it's going to make us significantly less bulky, and it's going to make us rely on our spells, where we really can't do that all that much with this. And so, you know, with a wild magic sorcerer, you want to be casting first level spells as often as you can in order to get your wild magic surges happening, but you can't really do that while you're raging, so they conflict, and so I didn't really want to go that route. So we're going a very different route than normal, but still a magical route. And basically, you are finding ways to channel this craziness, and we're gonna explore all of that together. Of course, honorable mentions will be at the end of the video, and I have several. I went through a few different builds. At least I got part of the way through, and I was like, that's not gonna work, or that just doesn't sound as fun as this other thing that I was working on. And so we have today's build. For our race, we have a new contender on the block, and that is the Gith. Now, the Gith aren't necessarily a new race. They come from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, but they are very unique, and they give us some really interesting buffs. There are two different sub races to choose here. The regular Gith gives us a boost to intelligence, which we're going to change just because of Tasha's. But mostly it's a lot of the same things from any of your other normal races. But in your sub races, you get to pick a couple of different options, and each of those come with some features as well as some innate spellcasting. And that's where I was looking for some interesting options. I thought about going Tiefling, but Tiefling is specific to Charisma, and we have to dump Charisma on this build. We are definitely dumping Charisma, and so, you know, getting Hellish Rebuke is cool, but also the DC would be ridiculously low, and so there's no point. So we ended up not going with Tiefling. So instead, we're going with the Gith, and we're going with the Githyanki. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Let me know in the comments if I'm not. Instead of the Githzerai. The Githzerai is not really made for barbarians. It comes with shield. It comes with shield, which, you know, is my favorite first level spell. However, we are going to get shield by another means. And so it's a bit redundant to take it. Yes, it would be nice to have it at early levels, but we will get it eventually and it'll be all right. Instead, we get Mage Hand, Jump, and Misty Step as we level up at first, third, and fifth levels, which is pretty good, honestly. We also are going to get a bonus proficiency in either a skill or a tool, and it can be any of them. So this is going to be a bonus proficiency. And so now we have 5 skills. We will get 6 at level 3 and 7 at level 10 based on our barbarian stuff, at least barbarian level 3 and 10. And so that's going to be really cool. We've got a lot of skills going on here. And, you know, as they say,
girls only want boyfriends who have great skills.
Speaking of ability scores and stats and things, let's go ahead and talk about our ability scores here. And so we've got a 17 in Constitution, which is pretty cool, right? It's different though. Normally we go with our strength as our max one, but we're going for bulk here. And especially we're going to get this as high as we can just because this is the basis of our saving throw DC for our wild surge, and so we definitely want to get this as high as we possibly can. So we've got our 15 is our strength, our 13 is in intelligence, so you can kind of see where we're going with the multi-classing here. We've got a 12 in dex and a 10 in wisdom, and of course an 8 in charisma. Had to dump it, but you know, what else is new? So for our +1 and +2, we are going to be using Tasha's optional rules to switch those around since the Gith isn't really giving us the boosts where we want them. And we're going to put a +2 in strength and +1 in constitution, giving us an 18 constitution and a 17 strength. So pretty good, not too bad, giving us a +4 in the constitution, which is pretty good, especially at our level 1, so I'm okay with that. As far as our equipment goes, we've got a longsword or a warhammer as our main weapon. You can choose either one of these. This is the highest damaging weapon that you can use one-handed, and it also gives us the versatile property that you can use with a shield, which is what we are trying to do. Yes, I am fully aware that lances exist, but I really don't like the disadvantage when you're 5 feet away. Yes, I'm also aware that we have reckless attack, which would cancel out that, but I really don't think it's worth attacking normally when we're giving everyone else advantage on us. That seems like a pretty large price to pay. Now, I do have an alternative to this, and we can fix this technically. So check out the honorable mentions at the very end, and we will talk about this build specifically, where a lance could work. We can make a lance work, but we'll have to make a couple of changes, and we'll talk about that at the very end. So like I said, take a shield here to help with your AC, because that's going to be very crucial to have. And we're gonna go naked starting off using our unarmored defense. So our unarmored defense would be the same if we used this or scale mail, just because we've got a +4 to our constitution and +1 to dexterity, which is exactly the same as scale mail, and we just get to ignore the disadvantage on stealth, which is fantastic. Now we are going to be working up to half plate eventually, and half plate doesn't get outrun until, actually it doesn't get outrun until like level 18 for us. So yeah, as soon as you can get half plate, it's going to be better than what you have, but half plate is also incredibly expensive. So get it when you can, and that'll give you a boost to your AC for sure. So grab that as soon as you possibly can afford it, and then you'll dump it once you get to level 18, which is super, super late. So then, yeah, that is all for our equipment. Let's go ahead and start taking some levels. So level 1 gives us unarmored defense, which we've already talked about, which gives us a +4 to our AC from our constitution and a +1 from our dexterity, so 15, +2 from the shield, so we have a 17 AC. Not too bad at level 1. Could be better, and we're going to make it better, but not too bad. Rage here is also great. Rage is wonderful. One of the best features that the barbarian gets. I don't know if it's the best feature, but it's really, really good. I really love Rage. Level 2, we get Reckless Attack and Danger Sense. These, of course, are going to give us advantage on our attacks, which is fantastic, but it also gives advantage to attacks against us, but honestly, it's worth it. And then we, of course, get advantage on dexterity saving throws when we can see what is trying to force us to make that save, which is very, very useful considering our dexterity isn't going to be fantastic for this build. Definitely nice to have advantage on those to help us out in that weakness. And then of course at level 3 we get our subclass, and we're going with Wild Magic. So we get a few things here. We get Magic Awareness, which is basically a very short blip of detect magic. It is a 60-foot radius rather than 30, and it's just for one round essentially. And so you gotta look for those blips really quick, and then that's it. But you can do it multiple times in a day, which is pretty decent. Really cool ability though. I really like it. And then of course Magic Surge, which can give you one of 8 different abilities when you rage. They are random, and so that is a little bit of a drawback, but you know, it's still worth doing. If you haven't seen our previous video on Tuesday, make sure you check that out up in the iCard above. That is where we go into much more detail on what each of these things do. So we're going to skim over a lot of these, but we covered them all in pretty good detail then. Then we get Primal Knowledge, which gives us another skill proficiency. So that is another skill proficiency on top of the extra skill proficiency that we got from our race, which is pretty cool. And then we will get another one at Barbarian level 10, which is going to be a hot minute. And we get a third rage here as well, which is always really good. Barbarian 4, we're going to keep going with Barbarian, and we get to take a feat or a ability score increase. We need 1 feat, and I have to take it here, otherwise it completely messes up our build. And it's going to be Warcaster. Just because we have a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, I want to go ahead and take that. Now, keep in mind that with this build, we are going to be able to use our sword as an arcane focus, but I want to make sure that we are covered in all ways possible. We actually could use our shield as an arcane focus too, but we don't have any open hands to do any kind of somatic anything. So depending on how your DM rules it, some DMs may say, well, as long as you're holding your arcane focus, then you don't need Warcaster, but others would say differently. So definitely talk to your DM about how he or she rules that, because that could completely change whether or not you need to take this. For me, you do, but other people read that a little bit differently, so definitely talk about that with your DM. But this gives us the ability to do a few things. One, we can cast a spell instead of making an attack of opportunity. Most of the time, we're probably just going to make the attack of opportunity, but it's not a bad idea to have that in your back pocket if you really needed to. And of course, it allows you to do somatic components of a spell while also holding things in your hands, which is pretty good. So yeah, definitely talk to your DM as to whether or not you can do this given what we are about to do here in just a couple of levels. Level 5 is of course extra attack and fast movement, so this allows us to attack twice during the turn, and fast movement of course ups our move speed, which is amazing. We're always looking for that. And level 6, normally this would be when I'm multi-class, but I'm actually going to put this off for one more level because bolstering magic is just really good. I really wanted to take this now, and basically just having Bless Light as well as the ability to recover spell slots is really good, especially since we're about to start doing some spell casting. I thought that it was just a little too valuable to push that off until after we've multi-classed. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and take that now. Plus, that goes ahead and gives us our 4th Rage, which is really good. I'd rather not put that off if I don't have to. And so that's really nice. So those numbers are working out pretty good. Then level 7. Level 7 is where we begin our multi-classing, and we're actually going to go Artificer. And I know, it's weird, Barbarian also being an Artificer, but the way that I see this is you have some innate magical ability, but you have been trying to figure out a way to channel it, to focus it, to make sense of it, and to give a tangible way of controlling it. Well, with the Artificer, you now find yourself busy with tools and things and working on ways to make your magic work for you in that way as well. So pretty cool. You can focus it when it's through certain things, but when you try to do it, you know, as a sorcerer would, you get a wild magic something happening and you don't really know what's going to happen. But when you work with your tools and things, good things happen to you. So that's pretty cool. We get a few things as an Artificer 1, and we get magical tinkering as one of them, which is basically useless. We've talked about all this in my Artificer guide, which is up in the iCard there, and you can check that out. We go into great detail about this class, and here in a second I will put an iCard above for the subclass we're going to, because we're taking enough to take a subclass here. We also get spell casting here, so we get a couple of cantrips and a couple first level spells. We can only have two. We can only have two prepared at the moment, which is pretty low. And yeah, that it doesn't scale super well. We get a few more as we go, but our intelligence is pretty low. And we're gonna hopefully fix that as we go. But things that I recommend here, we already have Mage Hand, which is basically the best cantrip. So let's go ahead and take the one that's kind of tied for the best cantrip, and that's Prestidigitation. So we don't need to be using our intelligence for it, and that is the big thing that I want to have as a theme here is don't rely on your intelligence because it's really low. So focus on things that heal, focus on things that maybe don't necessarily need a saving throw or a bonus to hit. We're worrying about just helping to buff our allies and things that don't really require that skill. So we're also going to take Mending here because it's going to work really well with our subclass that we're going, and you might be able to see where we're going, but you may be slightly led astray just by us taking Mending. As far as first level spells, there are a few good ones here. Longstrider, Featherfall, Grease, Identify. Those things are really, really good to have. If you don't have a wizard, Identify is kind of a must, because then you can just kind of be like, oh yeah, that's that thing. That's what this thing does. There you go. Identify is great. And so it's really good to have that in your back pocket, and eventually you could cycle that out as far as what you have prepared, just because Artificers are prepared classes. So that's really cool. You have access to all of your spells. You just get only so many per day. So you can go days without bringing Identify, and then you're like, well, we got 16 magic items and we don't know what they are. And so you just take a morning and just go identify, and just cast it as a ritual over and over and over and over and over. And you can identify all of them in one sitting, which is pretty great. So definitely good to have, definitely opens up your options. Artificer 2, level 8, we get our infusions, which is the whole reason we are here, which is the whole reason that anybody goes into Artificer. And these things are so good. These infusions are so good. But my first two choices are basically what they always were, and when we did our builds for Artificers, and Enhanced Weapon, Enhanced Defense. These are both really, really good. And we actually are going to phase one of these out later, which is weird to say, but we are going to phase one of these out later. And so I think that's pretty neat. And then in the back, Bring a Bag of Holding and a Homunculus Servant. Those are all really, really good infusions. Those are basically like the top four, and they work really, really well with this. So that is another boost to our AC. You're going to want to put that on your armor. Well, you don't have armor, do you? So we're going to put it on our shield, actually. So we're going to put it on our shield for now, and we will actually be switching things up a little bit later. So now is about the time you're going to want to be looking for half plate, just so you're aware, because we're going to need our enhanced defense on our armor later. So we're going to want to be able to take armor when we get a little bit higher level. Level 9, Artificer 3, we get our subclass here, and we are going to go Artillerist. I know, weird, right? It's not Battlesmith. I know a lot of you probably thought it was Battlesmith, but we're going with Artillerist. One, I love Artillerist, and you guys showed that you really love it as well, with your views and your comments and everything when we did our Artillerist build right there. And we also talked about the Artillerist in great detail on the channel as well, and that is right there. I'm just using all of my cards today, right? I normally don't do that, but there they are. They're all right there. So this is going to give us several things. First of all, we get proficiency in wood carving tools. I don't care. We get a couple of spells, and we get Shield and Thunderwave always prepared. This is why we didn't go with the Githzerai for our Gith, because it gives you Shield already, and it gives you Detect Thoughts. Detect Thoughts is based on a saving throw, and I don't we're not going to pass this. The saving throw is not going to work because it's a wisdom based save. Yeah, so we would never have used that. So we would have gotten, so we're now getting shield anyway. So the other option is just straight up better because they both give you mage hand. So they're both the same. So yeah, we're definitely going to be using shield. And that's the thing, you can break your rage, use shield, and then activate it again on the next turn. There's nothing wrong with doing that if it's going to be a huge hit on you. Blow shield and use it. It's there for you. You have 4 rages. That should be more than enough, at least on a given day. So absolutely fantastic. And then we get our Eldritch Cannon. Now, in my initial video, I talked about how good the flamethrower is. I talked about how good the force ballista is. One is a saving throw. One is a attack roll. And then I talked about how not so good the protector was. It gives you some temporary HP on your bonus action. I'm going to recommend that you go protector here. And I know that that's very odd, but I was looking at either this or armor. I actually was also looking at battlesmith. But with the armor, you get the ability to do something similar to this as a guardian armorer. And it gives you a flat heal, or at least temporary HP, equal to your level in artificer, which we're only going to get to level 6, and you can only do that proficiency bonus times per day. So I was looking at that and I'm like, okay, that's not terrible. You know, they're both on a bonus action, but then you look at what the protector does here in comparison. One, you can do this as long as the cannon is active. You can do this every bonus action if you want to. So that's pretty cool. Now, this does obviously compete with raging twice, but if you've cast shield, then you probably don't need your protector that next turn. So that's pretty good. So it ends up not actually needing to compete at all, which is fantastic. Then it is a 1d8 plus our intelligence modifier, which is currently 1. We're going to bump that here in just a minute. So on average, you're going to be 4.5 plus 1. We round that up, which is going to be a 6, which is what you're going to get maxed out is the armor or guardian form. And so I think you get more out of the artillerist here, and it's more reliable because you can just keep doing it every single turn. It's not proficiency bonus times. It is every single turn. You do it over and over. And that's just going to reduce so much damage over the course. You're not really using your spell slots for a whole lot outside of shield. And so if you need more than one cannon, make another one. Feel free to blow that spell slot and make another one. And if you need something for shield, great, you've got it. But I think it's more than worth it to bring the protector here and just make yourself that much harder to kill. So yeah, I think it's absolutely wonderful. Level 10, Artificer 4, we get our next ability score increase, and we're going to take that a +1 in strength and a +1 in intelligence. So this is going to bump our intelligence to a +2 and our strength to a +4. So we're starting to look a little bit nicer here. That's definitely a huge help to us. You know, if we put a +1 in anything else, it really wouldn't have made that much of a difference. Although we're really not using intelligence for a whole lot, it's just kind of a placeholder. But now you can feel a little bit more comfortable using it when we take the next level, which is going to be level 11, Artificer 5. We get our arcane firearm here. And so now you can switch between having a weapon and having basically a magic gun at your side. And that's pretty cool, right? So we can be a barbarian that's just shooting people with spells. And I kind of love that. You get extra damage out of it. So definitely feel free to fire off some, fire bolts if you want to do something like that. If you took that at the beginning instead of mending or prestidigitation, or even one of your damaging spells if you wanted to do something like that. I think it's absolutely awesome, and I think that it really can help your versatility here. So if you need some stuff at range, you've got that option. But if you don't have to. It's all good. And so you also get second level spells here, which opens up your options even more. Personally, I recommend taking things like Aid, Rope Trick, and Lesser Restoration, things that are used outside of battle. but you've got a +2 to intelligence, so I mean, your plus to hit isn't as garbage as it would have been before, because your proficiency bonus is scaling. So, you know, don't feel bad about firing off the occasional spell and dealing a little bit of extra damage with your little gun that you carry with you. I think it's pretty neat. Then, Artificer level 6, overall level 12. We get tool expertise, which, again, who really cares? And then we get 2 more infusions. These infusions are incredibly important, and by this level, by level 12, you should have been able to get some half plate by now, and you definitely are going to want that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to swap out enhanced weapon for radiant weapon, because unless we're going 10 levels in Artificer, radiant weapon is just better. It does take your bonus action, but it's not that bad. It's totally fine. I think it's worth it. I think it's really cool, and it gives you just an extra little thing. If your opponent makes a save, they make the save. Who cares? But otherwise, it's the same benefit of a +1. That +2 doesn't happen until level 10, which we're not going to get there. So pretty cool there. We're also going to take Repulsion Shield, and so we're going to move our Enhanced Defense at some point over to our armor and put Repulsion Shield on our shield. So that's going to give us a +1 to our AC from our shield and from our armor, which is pretty great. So we currently have +4 from our constitution, but we're using armor now, so that ends up being a +5, which is good. And we get a +1 from our dexterity, which is a 16. We get a +3 from our shield now, which is 19, and +1 from our armor, which is 20. So that's pretty cool. We have a 20 armor class right now, and we can actually turn that into a 21 here in just a little bit if we bump our dexterity, which we may or may not do. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's really cool. We can really work on getting our AC up. So I want to swap enhanced weapon for radiant weapon and take repulsion shield. In the back, it's probably not a bad idea to carry a cloak of elven kind. A Cloak of Elven Kind is really, really nice because it can help you to get rid of that stealth disadvantage. It can at least even it out, because we're not going Infiltrator, Armorer. We do have that disadvantage going on, but this can give you a niche time to activate that if you need to. But most of the time, I would say your 3 infusions need to be Shield, Armor, and Weapon. Level 13, we are a Barbarian 7. We're back and we're staying here for the rest of our career. We get Instinctive Pounce and Feral Instinct, so we get a bonus to our initiative, and we get a little bit of extra move speed on our rage turn, which is pretty cool. Then we have Barbarian 8. The hardest ASI for me to choose. There are 3 contenders here for what we want. Intelligence we don't need. There's no reason for us to bump intelligence any higher than what it is, so we're going to skip on that one. But Constitution, Strength, and Dexterity all have a good case to be made. We have Constitution, which is going to not only make us a little bit better as far as our hit points, but also it raises our DC for our Wild Surge table, and so that's pretty good. Strength, of course, is our bonus to hit and some extra damage, also great. And then Dexterity is going to boost our armor class and help us with our initiative again. I'm going to go Dexterity. I know that that's going to be a little weird for some people, but I think Dexterity is worth taking here. And so let's take a look at our armor class again. As a Barbarian, we are going to be 15 plus Dexterity because of our half plate, plus another 1. So that is 15 plus 2 plus 1, which is 18, plus our shield, which is plus 2, plus 1 from repulsion. So we are now at 21 armor class, which is pretty respectable for a barbarian. You know, barbarians aren't known for being incredibly bulky, especially since you can't really have heavy armor going on. So 21's not too bad. You know, we can't expect anything to be in the mid-20s just because we can't go heavy armor. And now if you also got some bracers of defense or something, then you may want to make the case. You could make the case for going naked and boosting Constitution instead, or taking Dexterity and boosting Constitution as well. But bracers of defense could outweigh what you're taking as far as your infusions go, and then you could pick a different infusion. So just depending on what you get, you'll have to weigh that out depending on what you can find in your specific campaign. Then we go to Barbarian 9, level 15, brutal critical. So our crits now do extra damage, which is always a wonderful thing. And of course we get a +3 bonus to damage from our rage. Always good. Then level 16 is Barbarian 10. We get unstable backlash. So this is going to help us to basically just cycle through all of our different things. As a reaction, we can activate a new ability on our Wild Surge table. And so this will help you to hopefully get to the one that you want a little bit quicker if you didn't get it initially, which is great. And Primal Knowledge gives us a second skill proficiency, which is awesome. Level 17, Barbarian 11, we get Relentless Rage here. And so basically we just, we don't die because we just get to make a Constitution saving throw if we were to go to die. But we've got our temporary HP going on from our cannon, and we've got a really decent AC. Like we're doing all right. But in case our Constitution wasn't helping us enough, level 18, Barbarian 12, we're going to bump our Constitution and make that a 20. So we now have a maximized Constitution. It only took 18 levels, but it's going to not only help our save in our Wild Surge, but it is also going to just make us a little bit bulkier, at least for these last few levels. Level 19, Barbarian 13, we get Brutal Critical second die, so it's now 2 extra die when we crit, which again, you should be critting more often than most people just because you do have advantage on all of your strikes, so definitely something to think about. And then level 20, we get Controlled Surge, which isn't a terrible, it's not a terrible capstone here. You get to roll twice anytime that you roll for the Wild Surge, and if you roll the same thing twice, you get to choose any of them that you want, which is really, really good. So that is our build. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. It is definitely a unique build. Again, we're not necessarily going for optimized in every single way, but we're going for some fun options just to get the creative juices flowing. And so let's talk about some of our honorable mentions. First of all, the Lance build. The Lance build can work just in limited amounts because we do have Misty Step that we can use. One thing to talk to your DM about, because a lot of things that have been put out in Tasha's basically say if you got this ability and you have spell slots, you can continue to use this after the first time. First time's free, and then after that, if you have the spell slots for it, you can use it again. I house rule that you can do that and that it is retroactive on all things that have come before it, just because that didn't show up until much later. So definitely talk to your DM, because if you can do that, then a Lance is definitely viable, because then you can Misty Step more often, and again, you're not really using your spell slots all that much, so it's really nice to have. I think it's fantastic. We're here more for the infusions than we are for the spell slots, so if you can use it to cast Misty Step multiple times, you can just cast Misty Step, get out of there as a bonus action, walk back up within 10 feet, stabby, and just kind of go to town that way. So definitely talk to your DM before you just kind of do that, because he or she may or may not go for that. So just talk to them about that. The other things that I consider doing: Fighter, of course, but more specifically Eldritch Knight. Eldritch Knight is another half caster, just like the Artificer, but it's also because of an innate magic ability with the fighting of the Barbarian, and so it would have been a match made in heaven. Definitely a very, very viable option. The other ones were a little bit more out there, but Sorcerer was on my mind in going Wild Magic Sorcerer with Wild Magic Barbarian, which would have doubled down. But I talked about the weaknesses of that at the very beginning of the video. Sorcerers really want to use their stuff to do more things. We could have had some sorcery points to convert to spell slots, or taken our spell slots we're not using and made those into sorcery points, and done some shenanigans there. But again, we would need to be using our charisma for that, and our charisma wouldn't have really gotten above a 14, so that would have been tough as well. So yeah, not as great, but could be viable, could actually be very useful here. And the other one could actually be a Warlock dip, specifically Hexblade, which I know everybody loves Hexblade. But this could have been interesting, in which we could have focused down on our charisma instead of necessarily it being strength. And so we could have just had a 13 strength, pick up a level of Hexblade, at just one level at least. And this would have given us, you could just say it's from your pact, and sometimes, your patron just gets a little excited and you don't really know how to control it, and there you go. It all could fit thematically, right? So I think that would also be completely viable as well. So that is our video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're talking about the Zealot, which is the final Barbarian subclass. It is crazy that we are already done with the Barbarian. It's been a long haul, but we're going to go ahead and move on to Bards the week after that, which is a whole other thing, seducing dragons and being just genuinely crazy, and just doing whatever you want, which is just always a lot of fun. So hope you guys are looking forward to that as well. Another reason to subscribe, and of course, hit me up in the comments down below letting me know your thoughts. Of course, as always, stay safe out there, stay healthy. I know times are crazy, but stay healthy as you can, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.